Is it possible to know if someone is awakened? When a person is awakened, it means that there's no belief in being one to have a stake in things. So the evidence of being awakened is in the lack of reaction to things that would normally get a reaction in the state of being identified with form. So when you examine your own reactions to things, you can see how there is a pain inside when there's an offense to something held dear. That object can be the self, or what's perceived to be the self, or something related to the self, such as a person or a thing. In being awakened, it means to be awakened to the truth. Not the truth relative to a self or a view, but the absolute truth. That attention is given to the unfolding of creation in this moment, which is the truth. And there's no identification with alternatives to it. The conceptual self is made of concepts. And concepts are a departure from this moment, to the extent that they are either a plan to be used in another moment or a recollection. It's all concepts, thoughts. It's the reactions that are predicated on those identifications that obscure the nature of reality. When there's no reaction, when there's no party to be identified with that can be offended, then everything is the same. And so an individual who presents no self to be offended by virtue of having no identification with anything appearing in awareness would not react with the same level of emotional intensity as would be expected in the face of particular events. The Buddha talked about an arrow that stings twice. It would be like if somebody shot you with an arrow. There's the pain of the arrow itself, but there's also the pain of the intention of the one who did the offense. It's an affront to the self. Whereas a tree branch that falls from a height and lands on a person can hurt the body, but there's not the mental, emotional trauma associated with being attacked by a person. So the branch falling from the tree only stings once, whereas an attack from a person stings twice. The thing is, though, they are both a product of the causal chain. They're both a product of the first cause. It's just that the tree has no relational thinking, and the person does. And so there's nothing relational about the tree that would disturb the conceptual self, but there is something relational about a person that will disturb the conceptual self. An awakened person just presents no party to be offended. And that happens through a recognition that what appears in awareness can't be the awareness in which it appears. And what awareness is beholding can't be self, because it's the self that is aware. So Alan Watts said that it would be like biting one's own teeth for awareness to be the self, or rather, what appears in awareness to be the self that's perceiving it. What appears in awareness could no more be the self that perceives it than one could bite their own teeth. And he probably got that from somebody else. It's a process of making space. It's not an additive process. There is a letting go. And a concentration. And in that space and stillness, there is a realization of the non-self nature of what appears in the awareness that we are. Without being colored by the reactions to thought and phenomena, the inner space is perceived. The energy body therein is perceived. And the state of the energy body reveals resistance. There can be a perception of the energy body, and yet there still be blockages throughout the body that have to be unwound through the modality of surrender, of feeling those feelings associated with those memories or thoughts without trying to countervail the thoughts, the ideas, just the feeling of the feelings that underlie the thoughts, and an accepting of them without resistance, and then letting them go. Just embrace the worst case and then let it go. And as those are let go, the energy body is less modulated. It is allowed to rise, both in position and vibration, or to its natural vibration. The distortions created by the delusion of body and mind identification are imposed on the energy body, and then when they are released, the energy body, its vibration rises and its position rises in the form. And there can be uncomfortable blockages, energy in places where it doesn't seem like it should belong. Through letting go, it rises. And ultimately, it must stabilize in the spiritual heart. The spiritual heart is like a mirror that reflects the truth. Undistorted by the lens of identity. All of the energy unencumbered, and arising from the spiritual heart vibrates at the level of love.